custom virtual connect, client virtualization, and embedded management products within ISS. So a big flurry of things. What you'll see covered here today focuses on our embedded management innovations. And this really includes primarily the things that we actually design directly into the servers themselves that are really intended to improve the life cycle operations of the system. And it's automation and intelligence that we want to design in. You know, instead of having systems that require a lot of manual tasks, we realize that there's tons of tedious, time-consuming tasks that people repeat over and over and over again with servers. We want to create systems that allow them to do that once perfectly and have the system repeat that as needed. Sort of almost like programming the system itself in terms of its operation. So we'll talk about that today. You got a general overview this morning from, I think, Jim Gontier and Gary Thome. This is the first of those topics called Integrated Lifecycle Automation. Again, we want to focus on the life cycle itself, so I will talk about that in terms of a general overview. Peter will come in and give you guys a demo on Smart Update, one of our latest tools here. And then Doug Haskell will be specific in talking about the ILO management engine, even though we need specifics there as well. So we actually took a look at the entire life cycle, everything from how you bring systems online to how we manage the day-to-day operations of them, and then that updating process by far is one of the biggest that people are having to deal with. And I'll tell you, the most emotional, most challenging piece that we've heard from customers is that firmware and firmware updates were taking the most amount of time of anything for people. So we actually took it and did a grounds-up rework at how we could solve that issue because it was so problematic. And at the core of it, designed a new tool called Smart Update that Peter will go through in a few minutes. But by focusing on the provisioning piece, trying to make that faster and easier, making it so that everything is integrated, and you know, in the past it took lots of CDs and DVDs and downloads to get a system online. We're fully sending systems out of our doors today that now have all of the firmware and software required to get started up as soon as you open the box with that. No tracking down CDs, DVDs, or downloads. With Active Health, we've got a fully integrated and designed system that watches the operation of the system 24/7 to make sure it's operating at optimal performance and optimal speeds as well. So it's important now that as people are putting their systems in more mission-critical applications that we make sure that they're operating at that top level. And then finally, as we talked about, biggest time sink for IT is that firmware update process. We came up with a new, entirely redesigned tool specific for that. So all of these capabilities are primarily designed on our ILO management engine. This is an update to our traditional ILO processor. We're actually expanding the role that ILO takes now in managing the entire system. Smart Update, there's a small piece of Smart Update that's available inside the ILO management engine to do a single system update. But the biggest interest is the bigger Smart Update tool that Peter will demo later today that actually goes through and can manage a whole data center in terms of its updates, making sure you're better managing systems overall. So full life cycle view with that. All right, clicking down a little bit more into those three things, we talked about intelligent provisioning. As soon as we plug a server in, simply with its power and its networking, that system is manageable. Don't need any OS on it, don't need any other pieces. The ILO management engine is fully manageable, fully configurable from that moment on. So very important that in the past, you know, you couldn't really do a lot of what you needed to with systems until you got to that point where you had an OS loaded. Since we've got agentless capabilities, since everything is integrated, all of that can now instantly be manageable. Number two here, the way the system starts up is very different. And there'll be one point sort of midway through Doug's demo that you'll see the boot up of the system itself now happens where you have real feedback and information on that system on screen of its boot process within 3 seconds. Now we know others have put up logos on screens earlier, but you're actually going to get information that says what the state of the boot is. If you have any issues, you won't get what we call black screen failures any longer. You'll actually get real information that tells you, hey, you got a mismatched set of memory or a mismatched set of processors. Those would have all been failures in the past, and now you've got real data that will talk to you about that. Deployment is a lot faster in terms of having everything there and integrated. The number of steps required for those updates is much easier. You can do that provisioning in one of 3 different ways. First is the integrated tools, which are an updated set from our Smart Start tools in the past. You can use scripting, or you can use profiles as well. Any one of those 3 alternatives to how you get a system online. Next one is completely unique to HP with our active health subsystem. We actually look at 1,600 engineering parameters inside the system. By the way, Peter had pulled a hamstring, so he's hobbling around a little bit here.
Good if he's seated.
He was in crutches Friday, so this is actually a good news, a vast improvement. So we actually manage 1,600 engineering parameters in the system to make sure they're all operating in top form. You know, in some senses, if you remember in our ProLiant G6 announcement, we had what we called a sea of sensors, where we put sensors throughout the motherboard that told us exactly what the temperature was at multiple points inside the system. Well, instead of just using sensors of the thermal profile, let's put sensors all over the place and start measuring things more actively to make sure it's operating well. So that's really what this is all about, and anytime I can use a real measurement for a decision, I'm not making an engineering judgment with the required amount of, gee, I got to make sure it works, I'll put a 20% on top of it. I can actually get the most efficiency, make sure things are working exactly as they need to. I actually know what's taking place, and I can make better decisions. We were very, very specific in designing this system as well to make sure that we focused on the engineering parameters associated with that. We don't have any sort of interactions with anything related to the OS or any customer data. It's all really about making sure that the system operates properly. So lots of parameters like voltages of memory DIMMs and that kind of stuff. But in the end, what we're doing is making sure we can tune systems to operate at an optimal level. We also track any configuration changes in that so that if there's any issues that come up along the way, you can actually do a correlation between anything that happened. So it's pretty awesome that now we have accurate time stamping based on IEEE standards, and can actually go back and show a record of what happened. No more asking around the data center, has anybody changed anything with this system? The answers to that is usually, no, I didn't touch it, right? You actually get real feedback that says what changed, and you can correlate that to any failures or events that you've got. All that data is now available for us to very quickly diagnose those systems. So great information overall. What it does is it aids our problem analysis process so that we can collect that data and get it up to HP a heck of a lot faster. Instead of people trying to reproduce errors, spend time on telephones, tracking down even things like serial numbers, all of that is now available in our active health log so that it can easily be sent by the customer when needed up to our HP support teams. And then finally, probably the biggest area that we've gotten the most positive feedback was Smart Update. This was an area that customers just had a huge major issue in terms of the way we're doing those updates in the past. So we went off and we completely re-engineered our approach to that with our Smart Update 5.0 version. That update not only can do updates faster, it leverages a completely new process that we've got. With our service packs for ProLiant, we've actually changed our internal development processes. We test things as a solution now. This is a big change. We look at this as an industry issue and an industry change that's taken place. We've gotten to where more solutions are deployed, but the complexity of those solutions and the interactions to get things to work properly, you really got to know a known good set of things that are tested together across a broad set of solutions, and that's what service packs are all about. So you get the service packs, the known good testing, and now this new tool that can go out, and it can define groups, and it can define multiple baselines. So I can have finance servers, and I can have HR servers, and I can manage those differently based on groups that I define. I can define multiple baselines that I want to manage to, and connect those to be, baseline 1 goes to HR, baseline 2 goes to finance, and those can be managed, ongoing as well once those are set up. So great ability to do those setups. Even the ability to go ahead and set a given time for those updates to take place. If you want it to happen at 4 a.m. on a Sunday, absolutely you can define each individual system when it gets updated based on the time that you've set. It can even be done in different time zones. If it's 4 a.m. in Houston for one server and it's 4 a.m. in Mumbai for another one, you can actually set it up to that degree, and Peter will talk through all of those. The last and most important piece here is we did internal testing with this with a very large company in the Northeast, and we found a 69% reduction in time required to do those updates. That's huge. Now that means the same administrator can do 3 times the number of updates required there, and it's really the amount of time that the person needs to spend in front of that screen that makes a big difference. We also did some internal testing relative to the Dell tools that are out there, and looked at updating 32 systems, and found that it took about 5 hours of actual time that an administrator needed to spend in front of a screen to get 32 systems updated. With our automation tools, once you had those groupings set up, it took about 10 minutes. 5 hours down to 10 minutes. That's a huge improvement, and the kind of thing that's going to benefit you time and time and time again. All right, so enough of that update. Any quick questions on that? Should we get to the demos, which is really the more exciting pieces here overall? We want you to see this stuff sort of real time and in action rather than just give you some slide overviews. Second one.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yep.
All right, give me just a sec here, guys, to get settled.
There you go.
Yeah, that one.
All right, so Peter's going to go through the Smart Update tool itself.